absolutely no one in the history of ever has liked melted ice cream. And if you do, well, you're just weird. And there, I said it. And now that that's out of the way, let me show you how to photograph it before it melts. That way it looks delicious to us normal people. Alright, just kidding, but it is a huge problem for us food photographers. Melted ice cream, that is. I mean, ice cream melts really quickly, obviously, and photography is rarely anything but quick. So unless you're using some of the fake stuff like frosting or mashed potatoes mixed with food coloring, how do you photograph 2 bowls of the real stuff without it turning into a huge pile of sad, melted, multicolored goo? Well, I'll show you. To go off on a bit of a tangent, I think us photographers need to remind ourselves just how important color is to photography. I mean, obviously, I don't want to get all hoity-toity about art theory, but it really does have an effect on our contrast and our balance and how the viewer feels towards our subjects when they look at our images. Today's photo, I'm going to be trying to create a really cool ice cream shot where I restrict the color use in my props and my environment to allow for my subject to really just pop off the screen. I think if you're just starting out in photography, pay close attention to the use of color in your images. Don't use a ton of colors and rely too heavily on them as a crutch, but at the same time, don't not think about the colors that you choose for your photographs. But with that being said, let's jump into the pre-production of this photo. Again, this shot is all about simplicity. 2 bowls of ice cream, a third plate up here to trap the viewer's eyes, and a nice triangle composition. The colors I'm going to choose will be blue and green. So I'll have a blue background, blue bowls and plates, a blue fabric, and 2 blue spoons. I live in a blue world. Then I'll have some lime green ice cream and some green honeydew melon to make this 2-color photo. These are the props I'm going to be using for today's shoot. A nice blue bowl, blue plate, and a blue fabric with my blue background. You can tell they're not exactly the same shade of blue, but that's okay. I'm going to show you a really easy trick to fix that later on during editing. There are only 2 steps. The first one is pre-production. I want to make sure that I have everything set up. My lights set up, my table, my composition, my props, the story and the idea, everything's laid out on the table before I pull the ice cream out of the freezer. Hopefully, with good pre-production, the very last picture is the first picture with the ice cream. For this shot, I want my lighting to be pretty dramatic, so I'm going to use my 20-degree grid here on my studio strobe and shoot it through this large roll of diffusion paper. Now, I'm just going to raise my light up and angle it down towards the table and move it pretty close to the diffusion paper. That way I can tuck in those shadows, because the last thing I want is for the shadow of each bowl to bleed into each other. And for me in this shoot today, part of that pre-production is going to include the color correction as well, because I want to make sure that the light, the contrast, the highlights, the shadows, the color, everything is working, and I don't have to make, hopefully, any corrections while the ice cream is on the table, because with this shot, seconds count. I'm shooting today tethered to Capture One on my computer, so I'm going to first hop down here into the lens correction of Capture One just to make sure that these lines on the table are straight. Then slide the white balance a bit in the cooler direction, increase that contrast and probably saturation a bit, just normal color correction stuff. Increase the clarity, maybe some on the dehaze slider, just normal stuff to get a look at what the final shot will be like with this lighting setup. In the tab up here titled Next Capture Adjustments, I can set this to Copy from Last, so every image that I take from here on out has these same adjustments. And now onto the fun part. After I lay out my props and dress the set a bit to finish up my composition, I would be done if this was just a shot of a single bowl of ice cream. Scoop the ice cream into the bowl, set it down, and click the picture. Done. Who wants to eat ice cream by themselves? How sad. So in order to capture 2 bowls of ice cream to make this a nice little triangle composition, and without the first bowl melting before I scoop and style the second, I'm going to shoot this in plates. Basically, when someone says they're going to shoot in plates, they're really just planning out their shoot so they could later on composite everything together in Photoshop. When a client asks you to shoot in plates, which they often do, what they're really asking is for you to take a picture for each piece of the composition separately so they could later on, in post-production, move things around if they need to. And that's what I'm gonna do here to solve our ice cream problem. Now in Photoshop, I have both images stacked one on top of the other on separate layers. I'll go down here and create a mask on the top layer, then with my brush tool, quickly remove the mask to reveal the second bowl of ice cream below. And that's how you photograph ice cream before it melts. Some other things I did to this image was to mask out these bowls and spoons before I exported them to Photoshop. This table, this plate with the melon and the fabric all matched pretty well, but the bowls, like I said before, are a different shade. So once I masked them out on each photo inside of Capture One, I moved over to the Color Editor tab and moved the hue slider over a bit, then dropped the exposure slider down some to make it match a little better. Fun fact! Each year, the Pantone Color Institute picks a color. This is the color for 2023, Viva Magenta. Here are the color picks for the last few years. Their color picks are so popular with designers and companies that if you pay attention, you'll start to see them everywhere. Man, I need some more coffee.